This is a school of consciousness as expounded by the Buddha. What's the purpose of studying consciousness? This is a special school expounded by the Buddha. It is called Vijnana Matrata, study of the consciousness, so that we can change our consciousness, our tainted, polluted consciousness, into wisdom. Before you transform your consciousness into wisdom, you need to know what consciousness is all about. And consciousness is extremely, extremely complicated in everybody. When we study the Buddhist teaching, we have to be very patient. Why? Because everything is step by step. In studying consciousness, we study actually all elements within the universe. And it was originally broken down into some elements of study, some sections of study, elements. And we have 660 elements in Yucachara Burmese Sastra. It's expounded by Maitreya Buddha. But then in the later generations, some philosophers, bodhisattvas, found that to be very complicated, and they further they simplified it by simplifying the 660 dharmas, or things, or elements, into just 100. And out of 100, 51 are concomitant mental functions. So 100 dharmas, 8 consciousnesses that we already studied, forms 11, concomitant mental functions 51, dharmas, neither form or mental functions, which is 94. 94 plus 6 unconditioned dharmas will be 100. So that we already have talked about, just to recap very briefly why we want to study it. The Buddhist teaching is very detailed. It studies the universe, consciousness, and all that. And not many people know about that. They thought Buddhism is just a religion. It's not. It's about understanding of everything, every element around you. But because of our limited wisdom, intelligence, the Buddha can only say so much. The Buddha cannot say too many things in detail because we simply don't understand. Even these, there's a lot of things we still don't understand. It was given to us in a lot of literature by ancient philosophers and bodhisattvas, but still there's something that we still have to probe into it, and we don't know that much, but we keep on learning about it. So I have already touched on a lot of these. Now it comes to the 4 indeterminates. What are these 4 indeterminate? Let's go back to there. 4 indeterminate functions. What does it mean by 4 indeterminate? Regret, drowsiness, investigation, and scrutiny. These is right at that a certain moment is neutral, indeterminate. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be neutral. So we cannot say it is wholesome or unwholesome, because it depends on the situation. It could be wholesome, it could be unwholesome. It's just like, depends on certain situations. Something can be right or wrong, good or bad, depends on situations. There's no such thing as labeling it that it must be good or it must be bad, you know. So these are indeterminate functions that happen, that is in everybody. In our consciousness, we already contain these 4 indeterminate functions. Of course, it contains wholesome functions, 11 wholesome functions, and 26 unwholesome functions, immoral functions or moral functions. So in this session, we're going to talk about the 4 indeterminate functions, because all the others we already have talked in detail. And if we can finish this 4, that means we finish the 51 concomitant mental functions in us, other than the 8 consciousnesses and the 11 forms that we already have studied. Boring, right? It's nothing. It's something that you really have to hold your patience and really have to learn about it, so that you know what exactly is your mind. Don't you have to know what your mind thinks? It's not just simply saying, be positive, be positive about it, be strong about it. It's not enough. How? Why? When? In detail. Let's get into 4 indeterminate functions: regret, drowsiness, investigation, and scrutiny. What are indeterminates? Sanskrit, aniyatta. Mental states that are indeterminate, sometimes associated with a good mind, and sometimes with a bad mind or a neutral mind. It happens to you. Sometimes you have a good mind about this, sometimes you have a bad mind about this. Regret, for example. Kaukritya, Sanskrit. When is regret good? Regret sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. When it is relative to a good action omitted, say you have done a good action, but you didn't do it. You should have helped your friend John, because John has been your good friend. You should have helped him, which is a good function, but you didn't. And later you feel regret about it. Is that good or bad? Of course, you didn't help John is not good, but you regret about it. It's good, because you know that it is not right not to help John. So when it is relative for good action you should have done, but you have omitted it, later you feel regretful about it. Some people, they don't feel regret about not helping others. Why should I help anybody? Why should I help him? I never regret. Why do I have to lend him some money? He's in difficulty. He should suffer. I don't care. Why? Why should I help him? Why should I help my brother? Why should I help my dad? Why should I help my mom? Why should I help my friend? So but later you regret it, then it's not bad, because you regret. Or to a bad action accomplished, that means I have done something wrong. I have done something wrong, and sometimes I feel regretful about it, sometimes I don't feel regret about it. So whether it is right or wrong, whether you have regret, for example, regret for not making a donation. In a certain scenario, you should have made a donation to some organization, but you didn't. You regret for not making a donation. Or regret for having done a bad action. It is bad when it is relative to a bad action omitted or to a good action accomplished. Regret for not gambling, regret for making a donation. Regret for not gambling is bad. So regret sometimes is good and sometimes is not good. You pledge, say, $1,000 to help certain charity, and then you pledged it, and maybe actually you have done it. You donated $1,000 to help a charity to doing really good work. But later when you went home, then your wife or your friend say, hey, you shouldn't have done that. You know how much is $1,000? You only make $4,000 per month, $3,000 per month. Now you donated $1,000? You must be stupid. And then you say, yeah, I shouldn't have done it. Gee, I shouldn't have donated $1,000. That you regret on a good action. That is not good. Because you have done something good, now you regret about it. Actually, that donation is good. You know what I mean? So regret is indeterminate. Next, torpor, sleepiness, drowsiness. The mind incapable of commanding the body. It can be good, bad, or neutral. Torpor relates also to sleepiness or sleep. If you sleep in order to ease, to rest the body, that is wholesome. You're really tired, and then you fall into sleep so that you can ease your body, relax your body so that you can do better work next time. So that kind of sleepiness is good. If you oversleep, that is unwholesome. You're always drowsy. You tend to be greedy of sleepiness. Some people want to sleep all the time. They sleep for 7 hours per day, and then they continue to sleep. They fall into the habit of drowsiness. That's not good. You oversleep. Some people oversleep. The more you want to sleep, the more you will spend your time in sleeping. So, if you oversleep, that's unwholesome. Sometimes drowsiness does not refer to sleep, but to the function that occurs when the mind is not mindful enough to command its activities. If you're meditating, and you always have the habit of falling into a torpor situation, you want to be drowsy, that's no good. You have to be awake when you're asleep, when you're meditating. You cannot substitute sleepiness by meditation. In other words, oh, I didn't sleep last night, I feel tired. Oh, maybe I should do some meditation. Meditation is just sleeping anyway. It's just resting anyway. So why don't I just meditate? That's my sleep. Meditation should be in a state where you are awakening. You have to apply your efforts for training meditation, for training concentration, samadhi. Not in a state of completely relaxing your body and going to sleep. Some people say, I usually suffer from insomnia. Maybe now there's some meditation I can do. Maybe I just meditate. No, that's not the right way to do. If you suffer from insomnia, there must be a reason. You have to cure that first. It could be a habit. It could be something that you have to find a why. But don't substitute that by meditation. It's not. So torpor could be good or could be bad, indeterminate. Next, discursive reflection, or sometimes you call, in a Sanskrit, is vitarka, or examination, causing inquiry and reasoning with regard to an object. It is also named as discriminative reflection. It operates in a gross manner, not subtle enough, a form of mental discourse that investigates the deliberate. Whatever you're doing, your mind always to think about and find out more about it. Find out more. For example, if you are studying, you're using discursive reflection too. And sometimes you use your mind to do good things, and sometimes you use your mind to bad things. So this discursive reflection could be used by you spontaneously to investigate into hurting someone, or investigating into helping someone. You want to do something, or somebody has done you something wrong. Or it's not that. You think that somebody has done you something wrong. You want to investigate into how to take revenge, how to hurt him. Or there's something that you are greedy to get, and you cannot get it, and you investigate and you examine how to get it. Of course, the deed is stealing, but you want to investigate into how to do bad things. On the other hand, you could have discursive reflection in doing good things. You want to investigate into how to do charity. You want to get into, you're in the School of Medicine now, you want to investigate into how do I get into being a voluntary doctor in some parts of the poor countries, in other parts of the countries that you can help. What do you call those doctors?
Doctors Without Borders.
Yeah, doctors are what? Without borders, yeah, doctors without borders. There are medical staff, there are doctors without borders. They always, after they graduated, I want to research into how to be a doctor without borders. Some medical students do that. I want to investigate into, when I graduate, how can I become a doctor without borders? For some medical students, no. After I graduate, I investigate into how do I set up my business so that I can make more money. I know that doctors can make money. So how do I get a clinic done And then how do I, after I make the money, then I use my money for investments, and then I became a multi-billionaire. So discursive reflection can be applied to do wholesome or to do selfless deeds or selfish deeds. It's indeterminate. Which one you choose, it's up to you. You choose it. So it could be wholesome and unwholesome. It is in you already, in your mentality. So how do we make our discursive reflection better? There's so many ways. What kind of friends you have, what kind of family background you have. If you're always receiving, what kind of philosophy in life you have. If you are brought up in a family that is always helpful to others, that is always charitable, probably your discursive reflection will be geared towards how to become a doctor without borders. Whereas if your family is always thinking about self-interest, then you will be thinking about how do I become a doctor that can make a lot of money. So it depends on many factors about yourself. For example, in the faculty of philosophy, some philosophy students, they think about, after I graduate, I think I want to research more into wisdom, into how to improve human wisdom. I want to understand more in that area. And then they have discursive reflection on analyzing different philosophies and different policies and different lifestyle. And then later, he become a Buddhist monk maybe, or a Catholic priest, because he wants to get into betterment of spirituality of mankind, of human beings. He wants to get into the spiritual side of life, not the materialistic side of life. So his discursive reflection is on something wholesome. Whereas another person could be, after I graduated, I want to be a billionaire. And I want to do this, I want to do that. Or I want to, everything is egoistic. And the other person is not egoistic. So, depends on many things. Next is investigation. Sustained application of mind, causing precise analysis, judgment, discerning, reflection. Investigation causing thought to be subtle. It is this Dharma which serves as the cause that accords with the operation of mental consciousness on its object. It is like the previous mental factor, except that it is a fineness of mind. Say, for example, if you're doing meditation, discursive reflection is, first of all, this morning we were talking about how to prepare yourself for meditation. Discursive reflection is how to adjust your body, how to adjust your breath, how to adjust your mind, how to find an object of concentration. And then your object of concentration is on the breath, so you concentrate on your breath in and breath out, anapanasati, breath in and breath out. You want to gear all your discursive thoughts into one object, so that you can have a better reflection. That's the initial stage. And then later, after you can concentrate, then you get into wisdom level, into a deeper level. That's investigation. You get into a level where your concentration gear you to a second stage where you have no thought, or you gear to another stage of just not only no thought, equanimity, and then you go into one-pointedness of mind. So your mentality starts to get higher and higher and higher and higher. Investigation is the second stage. So you have a preliminary, and then you have a higher level. Everybody has that. Also happen to, not just meditation, in all kinds of things to do, you have an initial analysis, and then you get deeper and deeper into it. And when you go deeper and deeper into it, if it's a good deed, it's good. If it's a bad deed, it leads you into performance of that bad deed. For example, if you're planning on stealing, Have you seen those movies where they get into the safe of a huge bank through the tunnels and all that, and then finally they drill the floor, and then they get to evade all those camera laser, and then they finally get to the safe and steal? They have to have a lot of planning. Many years ago, I saw that kind of movie where a team of people, of robbers, they analyze the situations, how to get into, into robbing a bank, for example. They need a lot of discursive reflection and a lot of investigation, but on the wrong stuff, on the wrong thing, using the wrong mind. They're extremely clever. How do you use it? Sometimes you use it not in that way. You use it in the wholesome way or unwholesome way. You have to gear yourself to the wholesome way of discursive reflection and investigation. So that's the reason why these are the four indeterminates. Depends on you how to use it. Talking about studying consciousness, and before I start, I said studying consciousness would tune up your mind to the right way. This is what it is. If you find that studying consciousness is boring because you don't know how to get something out of it, if you know all these four indeterminates, then you will gear your indeterminates to something that is righteous and not something that is wrongful. If you know all these, then you can explain to your students, your friends, your children, that they should be using these four indeterminates in the right way. The right way, the right view, the right speech, the right action. Not in the wrong way. So you have to learn lessons from every item that we have. It's not just academically or psychologically studying certain terms. No. You must know how to apply the Buddhist teaching to actual life. It can be done if you really... So first of all, you have to be interested in it. You want to improve. You want to change. You want to transform yourself. So that's why I always say a true Buddhist is very investigative. He's a researcher of life, not a follower of life. Not a follower of traditional cultures simply because they want to be a follower. He wants to change life to the right perspective. So these are the four determinates. These being spoken, I finished the 51 concomitant mental functions. Let's get back to the original mental functions that we're talking about. Generally in interactive functions, attention, contact, sensation, perception, and volition, 5 of them. These have nothing to do with wholesome and unwholesome. The attention, the contact, the sensation, the perception, and volition, by themselves, they're not right or wrong. These are the functions that help you to think. Every thought contains this. And then particular functions, they're quite particular. Particularly in such a way that desire, resolve, mindfulness, concentration, and intelligence can be used in certain situations. You can apply them to make you successful, to carry out what you want to do. They themselves are not wholesome or unwholesome, morally speaking. We have 5 of them. We study them in detail. Why do we have to study them? If we know this in detail, then we know how we think. Then we can have better control on what our parliament of mind or an orchestra of mind. When you are in control, you're being the conductor, then you know sometimes you have to get particular desires, resolve to do things, mindfulness to do things. You're like an orchestra conductor. You know the whole piece of music. You know which group, which sections play what music. Unwholesome functions, then you know these are unwholesome. The 6 root, the basic unwholesome. 8 primary, 2 medium, 10 minor unwholesome functions. These are the mental afflictions in your mind. The jealousy, the hatred, the inequality, the violent behavior, the greediness, the ignorance, the hatred, the, I don't know, so many of them, 26 of them, is already in you. These are the bad ministers that lead you to do wrong things. And then you also have 11 wholesome ministers to help you to do wholesome things. Depends on what ministers dominated you, or you dominated your ministers. The parliament of your mind together to work in a wholesome situation. And then there are 4 indeterminate ministers. Depends on how you train them. They could be good, they could be bad. So given this 51 parliament of the mind, you being the leader, the speaker of the parliament, you really have to put them under control. If you put them under control, they work for your mind. You're not out of your mind. If you're not under your control, you're out of your mind. When you're out of your mind, what happened? You're out of your mind, what happened? So the Buddha's teaching is teaching us to care about ourselves, our mind, not about I believe in the Buddha, I prostrate, I get blessings. Not about that. That's just the peripheral. That's just about building up your faith in studying it. Sometimes I feel that how good it would be if everybody studied the Buddha's teaching, because it's just about ourselves, how to improve ourselves. But how come a lot of people are not interested? They're always thinking about the Buddha as something very superstitious, as something that, I don't know why, maybe, I don't know really. Well, but a lot of people are slowly turning to that kind of understanding. The bell already goes. So we, next time, we'll be talking about the dharmas not associated with the mind. There are 24 dharmas actually not associated with the mind, but they exist. Why? Because they are not matter. And they cannot make decisions. They cannot think. There are 24 such things that exist. For example, time. What is time? The past, the present, and the future. They're not formed. Time by themselves are not formed. And time itself cannot think. We think time, but time cannot think. That's why they're not associated with the mind. But they exist. Space, north, south, east, west. North, south, east, west cannot think. They're not formed. They exist, but they're not associated with the mind. So there are something that the Buddha said, nothing to do with the mind, but they exist. You see how detailed the Buddha's teaching is? They also tell you things that are associated with the mind and things that are not associated with the mind.